Jason's holiday packages vanished, only to be found hidden by HOA Secretary Karen, who called them visual pollution. She wasn't just nosy, she weaponized rules to control the neighborhood and stole what wasn't hers. But Jason had one thing she didn't see coming: a sister in federal law enforcement. And just wait until you see how justice showed up on her doorstep, citation in hand. Jason Carter had been waiting on 3 packages: a box of toys for his twin nieces, a specialty cookbook for his mom, and a comfort kit for his older brother, who was stuck in a hospital bed recovering from surgery in another state. It was supposed to be a small, personal way to bring some warmth into a cold December, but by the 3rd day, nothing had shown up. At first, Jason chalked it up to holiday delays, or maybe even porch pirates. He was new in town, just 2 months into life in Green Pines Estates, a manicured HOA community nestled on the edge of Raleigh, and didn't know all the quirks yet. Still, something felt off. His delivery alerts had pinged 3 times, and each one said delivered to doorstep. But his porch was still empty. So he did what any cautious veteran with a tech background would do. He opened the app for his smart doorbell camera and scrubbed through the footage. There, clear as day, he saw it. Every afternoon around the same time the delivery scans were logged, someone passed through the narrow hedge path between his home and the next. A figure in a long gray fleece coat and rigid posture, hair pulled tight in a no-nonsense bun, Karen Delaney. She didn't look like a thief. She looked like someone inspecting a crime scene. With gloved hands, she would lean down, lift the package, check the label, and, after a quick glance around, carry it off in the direction of her backyard. She wasn't rushing. She wasn't hiding. She looked like she thought she belonged there. Jason stared at the screen in stunned silence. Karen wasn't just any neighbor. She was the HOA board secretary, known for her love of rules and total war on anything she considered unsightly. Lawn chairs left out too long? Violation. Halloween decor past November 1st? Citation. But this? Stealing mail wasn't policy. It was a felony. His stomach dropped. These weren't just boxes. They were memories, care, support. One of the gifts was a plush bear with a voice recording of Jason saying, "Get better soon," to his brother. It had taken him hours to record it without choking up, and now it was sitting in some woman's backyard shed because she decided his porch didn't meet her visual standards. Jason had served 2 tours overseas. He'd seen a lot, but he never expected to come home and get robbed by someone pretending to protect the neighborhood. And the worst part, Karen probably thought she was doing the right thing. Karen Delaney had a reputation, one that spread faster than crabgrass and stuck like it, too. She called herself a steward of neighborhood standards, but most residents just knew her as the woman who cited a teenager for chalk drawings and tried to get a holiday wreath classified as seasonal clutter. For years, Karen had insisted that visible packages were visual pollution. She claimed they ruined the symmetry of porches and attracted crime, though no actual incidents had ever been reported. Her evidence? A binder of selectively highlighted HOA bylaws that no one else had ever seen in full. Neighbors had learned to live with her rules or suffer the consequences. One man received a $50 citation for having what she called aggressive lawn gnomes, garden decorations she claimed intimidated guests. Another family got a warning letter because their front doormat was text-heavy. So when Jason decided to confront her face-to-face, he didn't go in angry. He went in prepared, firm, but calm. Karen answered her door like she was expecting a delivery, not a conversation. He told her, politely, that he had video of her taking his packages and asked if there had been some kind of mistake. Her answer wasn't just dismissive, it was surgical. "If you want your little parcels," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, "next time follow the rules and get a proper mailbox enclosure. That's what a respectable homeowner would do." Then she closed the door. No apology, no intention of returning anything. Jason stood there for a moment, stunned. Then he walked straight to the HOA office the next morning. He showed the footage, explained what had happened, laid it all out like any sane person would. The board? They chuckled. One of the members actually said, "Karen's just being thorough. She's keeping the neighborhood safe." Another laughed, comparing her to Santa, if Santa was obsessed with code violations. It was surreal. Jason wasn't imagining this. A woman had taken his federal mail, and somehow the people responsible for oversight were defending her. He left that meeting not just frustrated, but with a feeling he hadn't felt in a long time. Pure, helpless rage. Back in service, if someone stole from you, there were consequences. But here, in this neatly trimmed cul-de-sac, with its HOA newsletters and pastel mailboxes, the thief had a title, a clipboard, and the board's blessing. Jason wasn't just being ignored. He was being treated like he was the problem, for daring to expect his property to be left alone. And Karen, she still walked the sidewalks like nothing had happened, clipboard in hand, smiling. Jason Carter hadn't planned to make waves when he moved to Green Pines Estates. He'd picked the neighborhood for its quiet streets, good schools for his godchildren, and the promise of a community-first HOA. But after what Karen did and how the board responded, it became clear he couldn't rely on neighborly goodwill. Luckily, he didn't have to. What Karen Delaney didn't know, what no one in the HOA seemed to realize, was that Jason's older sister, Renee, had spent the last 15 years working for the United States Postal Inspection Service, one of the oldest federal law enforcement agencies in the country. They weren't just mail handlers, they were the ones who prosecuted mail crimes, fraud, tampering, theft. Renee didn't need convincing. The moment Jason sent her the footage and explained the HOA's reaction, her voice went cold. "That's federal jurisdiction," she said. "You're not just dealing with a nosy neighbor. That's mail theft, and that's our territory." Less than 2 days later, 2 agents from the regional field office arrived in Green Pines Estates. They weren't wearing badges on chains or tactical gear, just buttoned shirts, quiet authority, and a padded folder full of documentation. Jason's time-stamped footage, a copy of the HOA's CC and R's, and a printed page highlighting 18 U.S. Code Section 1708, the federal statute on theft of mail. They didn't sneak up to Karen's house. They announced themselves, loud and clear, at exactly 11:15 a.m., just as lawn care crews and retirees were outside, and most working parents had returned from their school drop-offs. "Ma'am, we're with the United States Postal Inspection Service. You are currently in possession of multiple mail parcels not addressed to you. That constitutes a violation of federal law." Curt, precise, audible halfway down the street. Window blinds twitched across the cul-de-sac. A jogger slowed to a walk. Someone's sprinklers shut off mid-cycle. Karen answered the door wearing her usual cardigan and clipboard, but her expression dropped the moment she saw the agents. Her voice, usually clipped and confident, wavered as she tried to regain control. I was protecting the neighborhood," she said quickly. "The packages were left out for days. I didn't want them stolen. He's new. He probably doesn't understand our rules." But the inspectors weren't there to interpret HOA preferences. They were there to enforce federal law. They asked for the packages. She hesitated, then finally gestured toward her side yard, where a plastic storage bin sat tucked under a vinyl bench. One of the agents opened it and began quietly matching labels. They didn't say a word until every last box was verified and returned to Jason's porch, right where they belonged. Then they handed Karen a sealed envelope, a federal citation, $5,000. They placed it gently on her monogrammed welcome mat, thanked her for her cooperation, and turned to leave. Karen just stood there, frozen, lips parted, eyes darting to the neighbors now openly watching from their yards. The clipboard she always carried dangled limply from her fingers. Jason watched from across the street. He didn't smile. He didn't gloat. But inside, the tension that had been building for days, the helplessness, the fury, the disbelief, started to crack, giving way to something new, control. For the first time since those packages disappeared, it felt like the rules actually protected him. And the neighborhood? It would never see Karen the same way again. Karen Delaney didn't go quietly. For the first few weeks after the citation, she doubled down on her innocence. She claimed the entire incident was a misunderstanding of community intent and insisted that the postal inspectors had overstepped their jurisdiction. She even tried to appeal the fine, hiring a private attorney who specialized in HOA defense cases. But federal statutes don't bend for neighborhood politics, and they certainly don't bend for clipboard crusaders with selective memory. The footage Jason had submitted was irrefutable. Clear timestamps, multiple angles, no ambiguity, and the Postal Inspection Service didn't send agents unless they were ready to make a point. By the time her appeal failed, the legal costs had ballooned. Word around the neighborhood, mostly whispered behind hedges and over backyard fences, was that Karen had spent upwards of $7,000 in legal consultations, paperwork filings, and failed motions before finally giving up. She resigned from the HOA board not with a farewell statement, but with a one-sentence email sent at 2:13 a.m. on a Tuesday. Effective immediately, I withdraw from all community leadership duties. No signature, no explanation, just silence. And that silence, it was golden. Almost immediately, something shifted in Green Pines Estates. Neighbors who had once avoided eye contact or nervously trimmed their hedges twice a week began opening up. One elderly man admitted Karen had fined him twice for his unpainted wind chimes. Another family shared how she'd taken their guardian angel statue during Easter and claimed it violated spiritual neutrality. One woman tearfully recalled Karen publishing a HOA newsletter that named and shamed residents for what she called non-compliant porch accessories, complete with blurry, zoomed-in photos from a phone camera. But now, with the board vacancy open, new leadership stepped forward, people who actually listened. And one of their first acts was to introduce a new amendment to the community charter, the Carter Clause. A simple rule, but powerful in its clarity. No HOA officer may touch, remove, relocate, or otherwise interfere with a resident's personal property without explicit written consent from the owner or legal authority. It passed unanimously. Even the die-hard procedural traditionalists nodded in approval. As for Jason, he didn't make a speech, didn't host a block party. He simply installed a new HOA-approved mailbox enclosure, sleek, discreet, perfectly within the guidelines. But he also upgraded his security system, quietly, smart sensors, night vision, cloud backup, and the camera still rolling, not out of paranoia, just preparation. Because if Karen, or anyone like her, ever tried to twist neighborhood care into personal control again, they'd find out real fast. Jason Carter wasn't the new guy anymore. He was the reason the community finally stood up for itself. And that story? It started with 3 missing packages and ended with a neighborhood reclaiming its peace.